Another key requirement that has to be carried out by top management, or at least partly, is described in subclause 5.3 Organizational Roles, Responsibilities and Authorities. Now, this requirement can be found under clause 5 of Leadership, so it's in the same section as the previously discussed 5.1, which was about leadership and commitment. So as you know, ISO 27001 is protected by copyright, which is why I can't provide you with the original contents of the standard. But what I can tell you is that clause 5.3 is all about top management and their responsibility to assign and communicate roles and responsibilities to maintain the ISMS conformance with the requirements of the standard and to report its performance to top management. So the requirements of clause 5.3 directly relate to the highlighted tasks in our project plan, which is to assign the overall responsibility of the ISMS and to communicate roles, responsibilities, and authorities for the ISMS to the members of the organization. At the beginning of our project, it can be hard to decide who will do what for our ISMS. And that's why we start by choosing one person to take overall responsibility. And this person will lead the project and make sure everything gets done. As we go along, we'll figure out the other roles and responsibilities that might be needed for our ISMS. Alright, let's learn more about organizational structures. Governance is most effective when everybody in the organization fulfills a clear purpose and is aware of what is expected of them. For that reason, organizations develop formal roles and responsibilities that describe the individual activities personnel is obliged to perform on a daily basis. Typically, roles are associated to a job title that tell insiders and outsiders what they can expect from them. Each individual has a certain rank within the organization and thus a position within the command and control structure, if you will. And this is often referred to as hierarchy. Typical ranks include associates, managers, senior managers, directors, vice presidents, and even C-level executives if you go all the way up. According to ISO 27001, top management is responsible to ensure that roles and responsibilities, as well as the necessary authorities that are relevant to information security, are assigned and communicated with special regards to reporting on the performance of the ISMS towards top management. Please don't forget that the scope of ISO 27001 is limited to information security only. For example, a reporting line established between the head of the sales department and, let's say, the CFO to exchange information on current sales numbers is not associated to information security by any means and would therefore not be deemed necessary by the standard. However, it's a good idea to have such a reporting line, of course, but it's not within the scope of an ISMS and would therefore not be within the scope of a certification audit. Organizations need to formally assign roles and responsibilities to individuals in order to ensure governance structures to work properly. Many organizations use a so-called RACI matrix or chart for that purpose. Here you can see an empty example of a RACI chart. Now you probably wonder what RACI stands for and what it is all about. A RACI chart is a useful tool for project management that identifies 4 key roles involved in the completion of any tasks. And the 4 roles are responsible, accountable, informed, and consulted. Now the responsible role refers to the individual or individuals who carry out the task. The accountable role designates the person who is ultimately accountable for the task and responsible for managing those who are responsible for it. The consulted role encompasses individuals who need to be consulted in the course of the task execution. And finally, the informed role includes individuals who need to be kept informed of the task progress. And by clearly defining these roles, a RACI chart can help to ensure clarity in responsibilities and accountability and ultimately lead to more efficient and effective project management. So a RACI matrix is a useful tool for clearly defining the roles and responsibilities within any organization. In this matrix, each activity is assigned to the relevant responsibility. As you can see in the example, each activity is associated with at least one role that holds accountability. It is important to note that accountability cannot be shared or divided, which makes it crucial to assign a clear owner for each task. Now, the purpose of the RACI matrix is to ensure that everyone in the organization understands their responsibilities and obligations, leading to a clear line of communication and hopefully effective decision making. By using this matrix, organizations can avoid confusion and overlap of duties, increase productivity, and achieve their goals more efficiently. I encourage you to study this example closely and consider how a RACI matrix can be applied in your own organization. When using a RACI matrix, there are several important factors to keep in mind, including skills, segregation of duties, and conflicts of interest. First, it's crucial to ensure that individuals possess the necessary skills and expertise to perform their assigned task effectively. For example, someone without software development experience should not be tasked with working as a developer. Segregation of duties is a principle that involves having multiple people involved in the completion of a task to minimize the risk of fraud or theft. For example, the requester, approver, and provisioner of a request to access an IT system should not be the same person. And finally, it's important to consider any potential conflicts of interest when assigning tasks. Conflicts of interest can negatively impact the success of the organization, so it's important to avoid them. For example, avoid assigning an employee to approve their own expense reports. That's really not a good idea and puts them in a bad situation. Okay, so today many organizations have a Chief Information Security Officer. In cybersecurity, we call these guys CISOs. They are the most senior security professionals in their organizations. Some organizations gave their CISO a different title, so some may have a Chief Security Officer or CSO in short, a role that often encompasses both physical and information security. Others might designate this position with titles like Security Director, Head of Security, or even IT Security Lead. While the titles may differ, the core mission remains the same: to safeguard the organization's assets, data, and reputation against security threats. In the context of an ISMS, the CISO, or whatever your organization calls them, is the person who has the overall responsibility for the ISMS to conform with the requirements of ISO 27001. Your job in step 1 is to designate a person to obtain this role. Now, when appointing a CISO, it is crucial for them to have a direct reporting line to top management. This ensures that the CISO has the authority and visibility needed to effectively manage information security risks. In the example on the left, the CISO and the Chief Information Officer, CIO, both report directly to top management. This constellation would be compliant with the requirements of clause 5.3. In the example on the right, the CISO reports to the CIO, which could be a deviation from ISO 27001, but both the CISO and CIO are members of a committee that also includes a member of top management. And this arrangement still provides the CISO with a direct line to top management through the committee and could therefore be compliant with ISO 27001. Now, as you can see, there are various ways to satisfy the requirements of ISO 27001. The standard itself is generic and leaves a lot of room for interpretation, so make sure to think twice.